Hi, I'm Jeffrey Ward, Station Forester and Chief Scientist at the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station in the Department of Forestry and Horticulture. And welcome to our native woody shrub collection here at Lockwood Farm in Hamden. This collection of shrubs was assembled back in 1962, and in 1976 was arranged to its present form with a dry site that we'll be visiting later, where they put in truck after truck of just bank run sand, and the wet site over here, which is actually underlain with multiple layers of plastic. Now, native woody shrubs offer an alternative to a lot of the exotics that are commonly used in the garden. Many of the shrubs here flower in the spring, which is a great time to visit the collection. Others, such as sweet pepperbush, spirea, buttonwood, are flowering in summer, and we'll see some of those flowering right now. Witch-hazel flowers actually flower in the late fall. And I gotta say, birds are a real frequent visitor to our garden here because they love eating the insects that are out here, and they also love eating the seeds. Now, these shrubs have thrived with minimum maintenance. And when you look at them, you have to remember these shrubs are 58 years old now. So there's been occasional mowing out here, annual removal of dead stems, and replacement of mulch. But these shrubs have never been fertilized, they've never been irrigated. We've never applied any pesticides to control insects or diseases. So they make the perfect backdrop to your garden. You can plant flowers in front to add some color. So what we have here is buttonbush, which is commonly found in a lot of swamps. But if you've got a wet part in your yard, this is a great shrub because it's flowering right now. And I don't know if we're going to be able to zoom in, but you can see how it really attracts butterflies and bees. It's just really great for pollinators. It's a very unusual plant. Like I said, it grows in full standing water. So it's one to consider. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some of the other shrubs which also really do well in wet areas. A great plant for a wet area if you want to have a pretty dense shrub is Clethra. Some people call it summer sweet. We're here in early July, but by the end of July through August, this is flowering. It's got a beautiful white flower, and it has a smell that just feel like a bouquet that'll fill your entire yard. It's just a great one. It needs no maintenance at all, and it keeps growing. I think it's just a beautiful plant. If you're ever looking for an alternative to boxwoods or privets, especially with boxwood blade out there, is consider planting inkberry, which is a native holly, evergreen holly here to Connecticut. It grows on wet sites, but it also do really well on average. It's got, I think, it's a beautiful glossy green leaf. It can be formed up into a hedge, just like you do with boxwood or privet, or you can let it grow a little bit taller, like you see here. Unlike some of the other hollies, though, it doesn't have a exceptional berry. It's just a small black berry. But for a landscape plant, which is going to give you a glossy evergreen leaf, it's one that's really hard to beat. What we have here is winterberry, which is another native holly. This is the one that some people plant that has bright red berries. The berries really start showing themselves when the leaves fall off in December, and the berries will persist through, sometimes in January. Depends upon when the deer eat them. It's just another nice plant. It takes almost no care at all. I mean, imagine this is 56 years old, and how this could really improve your garden. And there's varieties now that not only have red berries, but there's some with orange and there's some with yellow berries. Another really nice native plant for your shrub collection. A plant that you can actually find in a lot of wet areas in Connecticut, and you probably never even thought about, is Dirca, which is called leatherwood. It's just sort of a nice looking plant, but why it's really cool, it has a really unusual characteristic to it. It's called leatherwood because you can actually bend the stems and make knots out of them. It has almost no cellulose, so you can literally make knots, and Native Americans used to use this, and then when it dries out, they're very stiff. So it's kind of a neat looking thing. You'll probably be the only one in your neighborhood that has one. So consider putting leatherwood if you've got a wet area, and it actually grows pretty well in almost dense shade, which is also very unusual for a lot of shrubs. So this is chokeberry, which is another one which tends to flower in the early spring. It's commonly found on the margins of ponds or in the margins of streams, but it'll do well here now that we're over into the average soils. it'll do quite well here. So it's got, like I said, a really nice spring flower. It looks like a small flowering crabapple flower. And then it's got there's either black or red berries, depending upon the species you get, the flower in the fall. One thing to point out here, like I said, these are all, almost 60 years old. This one's getting a little leggy. So what we'll be doing this year is we'll be cutting back all these big leggy canes, and you can sort of see underneath we've got the new ones coming in. And that's what we do. Every 5-10 years or so, we come in and cut off the big ones, let the new ones grow up, and that way you can actually do naturalistic pruning, make it look like it's a native shrub with very, very little maintenance. I tell you, we all love when our rhododendrons and our azaleas are flowering, in early spring up through, towards the end of May. But there is a native azalea, sticky bud azalea or swamp azalea, which is actually flowering right now, which is in the middle of June. And one of the nice things about sticky bud azalea, it'll grow on average sites. It actually is native to swamp margins, but you can't smell it. And I really wish you could smell a lot of the plants we have out here. But it's got a great fragrance, especially if you're to buy one that's flowering so you can smell it, because some of them, the smell is just, it'll fill your entire backyard with the smell of like cloves and cinnamon. It's just a beautiful azalea, which is the last blooming one we have in Connecticut. If you have a place in your yard which is just really dry and it's tough to grow anything and you want a really reliable shrub, there's a couple really nice ones here. This is sweet fern. It looks like a fern, but it's actually a woody plant. And I think it's just got a gorgeous view. Can you imagine some flowers planted right in front of this? It's just beautiful. It really doesn't get much taller than this. Occasionally it'll get up to 5 feet. What you can't see on the video is, this has one of those great scents. And early colonists picked up this trick from Native Americans. They'd actually fill their pillows with this. So when they went to sleep at night, they would just be surrounded by the perfume of this really great smelling, fern-like woody plant. One of the other things we have over here is shrubby cinquefoil, which used to be a real problem up in Litchfield County when they abandoned the farms, because it would just take them over. I gotta tell you, is this just not beautiful, having yellow flowers in the summer? We're so used to having a lot of our gardens filled with flowers in the spring, but not having those flowers in the summer, but having those flowers in the summer just makes it really, really nice to have some additional color in your landscape.
Hi, good morning. I'm JP Barsky. I'm pinch hitting for Jeff right now. I want to talk about the American hazelnut. This is a plant that produces beautiful catkins in the spring. It's a wide growing shrub and produces an edible nut that you can collect in the fall and roast yourself. It's a great tree, native vegetation, very few insects or disease problems, and it's a great specimen to put alongside the border of your property.
One of the other things to consider putting into a dry site garden, there's actually a few things you can grow out there. One of them is bayberry, and for those of you who love the scent of candles, bayberry just has an absolutely beautiful scent to the leaves that you can use for a pot potpourri. If you grow a female bayberry, you can actually collect the berries and then boil them around the holiday season to fill your whole house with that smell. And it makes a nice attractive shrub which will grow pretty much on pure sand where it's really tough to. Another plant which I think is really underutilized are a lot of the sumacs. Everyone worries that when they see a sumac that it's going to be poison sumac. Well, I tell you, you're not going to find poison sumac unless you go walking out into a swamp. The other thing to look at is, if you look on, well, it's kind of hard to tell on this one because it doesn't have it. Poison sumac doesn't have any teeth, and the other ones actually have teeth. Or like wing sumac, it actually has wings along the edges. What's great about wing sumac, it only gets about 20 feet high. And if you let it grow up that big, it almost feels like that Japanese Zen garden where you've got these miniature 20-foot high trees making a nice little glade. And in the fall, this has an absolutely gorgeous color. It's a bright red. It starts yellow, goes orange, and then goes to bright red. It's just really, really attractive. If you happen to be from Jersey, and you want something different, you can always grow New Jersey tea, which will grow on a dry site. It got its name that early colonists in New Jersey were a little bit cheap and didn't want to pay for tea, so they would actually collect the leaves of New Jersey tea to make their own tea with.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm working at the experiment station this summer. This is mountain laurel. It's the Connecticut state flower. It's a really great shrub that helps to stabilize soil, and it also attracts a lot of really pretty things like butterflies and birds and hummingbirds, so it's a really great thing to have around with its beautiful flowers and with the things that it brings.
If you're ever looking for a small tree to plant around your place, one which is way underutilized is SHADBUSH. It's Amelanchier. There's a couple different species. There's 2 species native to Connecticut. I tell you, this is one of the outstanding, seriously outstanding native plants we have. It's the first thing to flower in the spring out in the woods. So when you're driving around and you look in the woods in late April, early May, you'll see the SHADBUSH blossoms. And then the fruit comes out. If you're lucky enough to get the fruit before the birds, it's about the size of a blueberry and tastes like a cross between blueberries and strawberries. Outstanding fruit. Then in the fall, all these leaves turn yellow to orange, and if it's really healthy, you'll get some red in them. Beautiful fall foliage color. And then in the winter, it's a little bit hard to tell because these are bigger and they aren't wet, but the bark actually has striations of gray and black and tan lines going through it, so it actually gives you some winter interest. This is a true 4-season plant to be growing around your property. You know, if you're a gardener, you're going to make mistakes, and I made a mistake about 15 years ago. I'm there, hey, I want something which is going to flower for Plant Science Day at the beginning of August. So we picked Devil's Walking Stick. This is Devil's Walking Stick. It's kind of unique. It's got spines all up and down the stem. It's got leaves with spines. And one of the things, see if I can break one off here, it has the world's, at least in Connecticut's, biggest leaf. Up. Ow, son of a gun. So that's one leaf. It's actually tripinnately compound, which is really funky. You almost never see that. The trouble with growing this plant is it's really aggressive. It'll spread in, from where you planted it, it'll spread throughout your flower beds, and it'll take you, once you decide you don't want it, 5 to 10 years to actually get rid of it. One you might want to consider planting though is something like this. This is NANNYBERRY. It's one of our native viburnums. And if you look at it, it's almost like the size of a small tree. This is about as big as it gets. And it's got a beautiful color in the spring when it has its flowers. And this year it actually has a fair number of berries. Let me see if I can find, oh, here we go. Some berries. And these are edible. They don't have a great taste. It's not like, if we have a chance here, we'll show you a wild raisin, but they are edible. And it has a nice fall foliage color. But again, it's just a small tree. It never gets very big. So if you've got a limited yard space or you just want a small tree next to your house, or a large shrub, this is a great choice. We're mostly talking about shrubs, but there's also some small trees that are in our collection. And this is one of my absolute favorites. Some people call it American hornbeam, some people call it musclewood, some people call it blue beech. It only gets 30 feet high, but it has this immensely dense foliage. And when it gets up at about a little bit taller than you can see it right now, it'll actually spread out like a sugar maple, and it'll give you, like I said, a tree 30 feet high with 30 feet wide with really dense shade. So which makes a nice tree for a small yard, and it'll grow in almost every soil except the driest. One of the other interesting things, this one's not quite big enough to see, is that when the leaves drop off, the trunks look like mussels. They just have all these, it looks like a beech tree but with mussels. It's just a very cool looking tree.
Hold it right there, Jeff. I've got a plant, Witch-hazel, which I think is more spectacular than your previous plant. This is a great shrub, goes about 10 to 30 feet tall, nice deciduous green shrub, green leaves, produces a little nut that shoots out little seeds, flowers in the fall that look like little tiny fireworks going off. I think this is one of the more spectacular 4-season plants. Thank you.
JP, stop right there before you go any further. The heck with the witch hazel. I gotta tell you, if you want a great shrub, you need to consider planting cranberry viburnum. It's one of our native viburnums. It's got a great spring color to it. The leaves in the fall are just absolutely gorgeous. They go from yellow again to orange to red. And one of the highlights of this is it's called high bush cranberry viburnum because it has fruits. They aren't ripe yet, but they'll actually turn red the end of November. And they'll persist on the tree sometimes until December. And what these fruits are great for, you can actually make lemonade. They're pretty sour, but if you pop one into your mouth, especially when they're ripe, they are edible. They just have like an acidness which keeps your mouth wet for over an hour. So if you're out there doing yard chores, you just grab one, you pop it in, and your mouth stays wet. And like I say, they are just absolutely gorgeous. Dun, dun, dun. Can't touch this. Dun, 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 dun. Can't touch this. Poison ivy has leaves of 3. If you look at it, so if you see a vine or a small shrub with leaves of 3, remember, leaves of 3, let it be, don't touch it. If it has 5 leaves, that's going to be Virginia creeper and you can touch it. And it's really too bad that poison ivy has uracil in it, which is the active ingredient that causes the itch. Because it is a beautiful vine. I mean, it turns an incredible range of colors in the fall. It's got these deep glossy leaves to it, which are kind of fruity. Actually, we've seen where it's been growing on a post and deer will browse it, so you could actually make it into a topiary. So, like I said, it's a beautiful plant, but you really might make sure you don't touch this.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm also working at the station for the summer, and this is spicebush, one of my favorite shrubs. You can tell it's a spicebush by taking a leaf off, crinkling it up, and smelling it, and there's this nice sweet smell of spice. Another fun fact about spicebush is that there are male and female spicebushes, and you can tell the difference. Females might have small berries, and if you're real good, you can look at the flowers.
Hey, I want to thank you all for the time we spent together here looking at our native shrub collection, and I'd really encourage you to come here and see it. It's open to the public Monday through Fridays, 8:30 to 4 o'clock. And there's more to see than just the native shrubs. There's a bird and butterfly garden out here. You can see how the crops are being grown. If you walk to the back end of the plot, you can see where the iconic picture of Sleeping Giant was taken. So please come to the experiment station, come to Lockwood Farm, and enjoy your time with us. Take care.